Welcome to Star Watch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. What does it mean when China's most powerful broadcaster says your name 4 times in less than 2 days? Not once, not twice, for separate mentions, for different public settings, under 48 hours. For most celebrities, that would be the kind of spotlight you dream about. For someone like Wang Yibo, it can feel more like a test. Because when CCTV turns its lens towards you repeatedly, the question is never only why him. It is always, what does he represent right now? And that's where today's story gets fascinating. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might realize this isn't just about Wang Yibo's career. It's about how an entire generation is being watched, judged, and quietly shaped through the people who stand at the front. The first thing people felt was not certainty, but tension. For CCTV mentions in under 2 days is not a casual coincidence in Chinese entertainment culture. It is a kind of national spotlight that lands differently from ordinary fame. For many viewers, it immediately changed the temperature of the room. You are no longer looking at a celebrity being popular. You are watching a public figure being placed inside a larger story. That is why the headline sounded like trouble. Because CCTV attention does not only brighten a career, it also sharpens the lens through which that career will be judged. In this moment, Wang Yibo becomes more than a familiar name. He becomes a symbol people interpret, argue over, project hopes onto, and sometimes fear for. The public reaction makes sense. Pride and anxiety can live in the same breath. A society that watches its youth closely often chooses certain faces to represent what it wants to believe about the future. The question is not only, why did CCTV mention him? But, why does the country need to mention him now? That is where the real weight of this story begins. To understand the emotional ripple, you have to understand how CCTV functions in the public imagination. It is not just a broadcaster. It is a voice of civic narrative. When CCTV repeats a name, it feels like a statement, even when no explicit statement is made. That is why 4 appearances in 48 hours created such a thick atmosphere online. It can feel like recognition, but also like examination. Viewers instinctively read between the lines. If you are highlighted in national moments, you are being trusted to carry something. And trust always comes with conditions. This is the kind of visibility that doesn't allow you to be small anymore. It suggests that your behavior, your tone, your choices, and even your silence matter beyond your personal brand. For a young star, that can feel like walking on a stage that never ends. It is a privilege, yes, but also a form of pressure that the public rarely sees in full. In that sense, the trouble is not scandal. The trouble is being important enough that your life now belongs partly to public meaning. Every time a young public figure is lifted higher, society reopens the archive. For Wang Yibo, that archive contains a painful lesson about how quickly perception can turn into a verdict. Years ago, a short remark during a promotion cycle was pulled out of its original context and reshaped into a judgment about his intellect and expression. It was never a fair trial, it was a viral reflex. Yet what matters is what followed. Instead of collapsing into defensiveness, he was quietly defended by people who worked closely with him, and later he spoke about his craft with a calm depth that loosened the grip of the label. The episode didn't disappear. It became a scar that taught him how public life works. The deeper truth is that young stars grow in front of a crowd that rarely waits for growth. They are forced to mature at high speed because the world around them is impatient for conclusions. So when CCTV now highlights him repeatedly, viewers unconsciously connect that past to this present. They see a man who has already been tested by misunderstanding, and they ask whether this new attention is another round of the same test, only larger, louder, and with higher stakes. What keeps people watching Wang Yibo is not simply talent. Plenty of talented people pass through fame. What holds attention is the feeling that someone is still becoming. His career has moved across music, television, film, dance, competitive sport, and public-facing projects. But the deeper narrative people sense is effort under strain. In an era where young audiences live inside constant evaluation, grades, metrics, comments, rankings, his trajectory feels strangely familiar. He doesn't present as a person who has escaped pressure. He presents as a person who has learned to endure it without becoming bitter. That is a quiet kind of charisma. It doesn't rely on speeches about resilience. It relies on returning to work, returning to training, returning to learning. Even critics often concede that his progress looks earned rather than manufactured. There is something psychologically comforting about watching that kind of growth, because it suggests a rule the modern world desperately needs. That discipline can still move you forward, even when noise tries to freeze you in place. His presence becomes more than entertainment. It becomes proof that a young person can be both visible and still serious about becoming better. A newer layer in this story is the way his public image has widened beyond glamour. Recently, he has been stepping into cultural spaces that are quieter, slower, and less designed for instant applause. Heritage-based programs, skills-driven projects, public education frames. These are not the arenas where a star racks up easy viral clips. They are the sorts of places where you are judged by patience, by willingness to learn, by respect for process. When a young idol chooses to be present there, it changes what youth representation looks like. It suggests that modern coolness can include tradition, that masculinity can include humility, and that the future does not have to sever itself from the past. This matters because CCTV is not only interested in who is popular, it is interested in who can embody a form of cultural continuity. So while fans might focus on the four mentions as a trophy, a wider public may read them as a message. Here is someone the country finds useful for telling a story about young people who are capable, grounded, and socially tied in. The effect on viewers is subtle but real. It makes his fame feel less like spectacle and more like substance. Of course, none of this exists outside economics. Wang Yibo's commercial gravity is enormous, and with that comes a double-edged reality. When you become a pillar of brand trust and corporate revenue, you gain influence, but you also lose freedom. Your success is no longer only your own. Agencies depend on it. Productions plan around it. Sponsors invest into it. Entire teams rise or fall with your public temperature. That is why national visibility adds another layer of pressure. It is not simply that people are watching him. It is that many people's livelihoods are linked to what he represents. A young star in that position walks a narrowing path. One wrong narrative can trigger a cascade far beyond one person. Yet he continues to work in a manner that signals restraint rather than indulgence. The public reads that, often unconsciously, as maturity. The commercial machine can create stars quickly, but it rarely keeps them steady unless they choose steadiness themselves. So viewers sense a fragile tension, admiration for his scale, and worry about the cost of maintaining it. The story feels dramatic because the height is real, and the wind at that height is ruthless. The awards turbulence revealed something important about modern fandom and public emotion. When a major nomination list did not include him where many expected, the internet behaved exactly as it often does. It turned anxiety into conflict. Yet what softened the atmosphere was not the noise of supporters or critics, but the posture of the artists themselves. Instead of feeding anger, the people involved responded with professionalism and calm. In a culture where outrage is rewarded with attention, that refusal to inflame felt almost radical. It invited the public to see a larger truth, that dignity is not weakness, and restraint can be a kind of strength. This moment also reframed Wang Yibo's position in the public mind. He was not only someone fighting for recognition, he was someone learning how to carry disappointment without letting it poison the room. That matters because the deeper narrative of these 7 parts is not, a star is winning. It is, a young person is learning how to stand inside pressure without losing his center. When viewers absorb that arc, they don't just feel entertained. They feel steadier themselves. And that is why this story lingers long after the headlines fade.